Please welcome Elijah Wood and Celyn Jones.
Oh, the Apple Store. It's such a wonderful place. It's a wonderland of technology. It makes me so happy. Just being in here.
Welcome, guys. Elijah, a little bird tells me that you said yes to starring in this film on November 4th last year.
Yeah.
Here we are, almost a year later.
Yeah.
And it's about to come out.
Yeah.
Is that the quickest turnaround you've ever had for a film?
I think it is, yeah. And it was actually the fastest, I think almost the fastest from reading the script, getting signed on to do it with these guys, and then going into production. So it was November 4th. We were in production in January. I was in Wales shooting. It came together very quickly. And then we saw the film. I think the first cut of the film was in April.
Yeah.
When you came out to LA. So I think we saw the movie in April after I mean, the paint hadn't dried. It was really remarkable. I mean, but the thing is that, you know, we shot in 18 days. The film, there weren't many directions for which the film could go. You know, in terms of post and editing, it was relatively simplistic. And in some ways we shot, and I think Andy and Chris shot the movie with editing in mind. There wasn't a lot of superfluous footage. So it was going to be a relatively straightforward process, I think, the post-production.
So what was it about this movie that made you say yes almost a year ago when you read the script?
It was honestly the script. You know, I think on paper, in a way, getting a script that's about a literary figure, you know, the fear, I think, would be that it would be a stuffy biopic, or that it would be too literal. And it was anything but. With these characters kind of popped off of the screen, and it didn't really require you to have a prior relationship to Dylan Thomas, the poet. It ultimately was about these two men, and how one of them is sort of changed forever as a result of knowing the other man. And it just had energy and electricity, and it sort of just jumped off the page to me. And then, you know, I think as an actor, I was also really excited about the notion of just going to do something as an actor. You know, the movie sort of functions as a two-hander with this wonderful supporting cast that we kind of, these characters that we meet along the way that give the movie such life. And I really love the idea of just going somewhere and working with someone and stripping it all down to its barest essentials as well, you know.
Absolutely. And Celyn, you play Dylan Thomas in this, but you also co-wrote the script.
Yeah.
So can you talk about your, I guess, what attracted you to Dylan Thomas in the first place? Were you a huge fan growing up? Was it something that always resonated with you?
Yeah, I got given a book when I was a teenager, and it was on the cover, it had a picture of Dylan with his feet on the wall outside the Vogue studios with a cigarette in his hand. And inside this book was loads of this sort of great poetry. And I just thought, this is not a guy that my brain was telling me looked like a poet. I thought he just looked like a guy you might know, or your parents might know, and you know, he looked sort of alternative, and so I sort of gravitated towards him and really loved the work. And then I, you know, and then when I became an actor, people would say, well, you know, you should play Dylan Thomas, you know. I kind of thought, you know,
Well, just randomly every 2 weeks.
Yeah. They'd sort of go, you know, well, if anyone's going to play a sort of a overweight, baby-faced, curly-haired poet, then from Wales, then you're in for a shout. And I just wanted to do it, and I wanted to tell this story, and I kind of wanted to say this sort of internationally Welsh story of a guy landing in America. So it was with me for a long time, and then I met Andy, and Andy and I wanted to work together. And
It's Andy
Goddard,
yeah.
Great director, and he's from Pembrokeshire, Wales, and we decided to do this Dylan story, and we wanted it to be this first week when he lands in America. We knew we wanted it to have a sort of punk ethos, and sort of halfway through the writing process, Andy phoned me up and said, wouldn't Elijah Wood be amazing, John Bryn? And I thought it'd be amazing, you know, and so we sort of finished the script with, you know, our John looking like Elijah Wood, you know, and that was it. So, and then AJ and Andy, our producers, that's our producers over there, give them a wave. They made a film in a year. Give them a wave. They need it. They need the love. They need the love. And then, you know, it just sort of came to life. And so, yeah, I have wanted to play Dylan for a long, long time. And now I have. opposite this man in a film directed by a friend and brilliant director. And Griff Rhys has done the soundtrack.
Yeah.
And, you know, Shirley Henderson, Kevin Eldon, Kelly Riley,
Yeah,
Mamie McCoy. I'm the only one I've never heard of. And
Wait, that's the best quote of the night.
I got plenty more in the tank.
Oh my God.
So no, it's great, and we're thrilled with it. And you know, it's just what we wanted to set out and make. You know.
Fantastic. So you said that you wanted Elijah to play John Brennan. Did you start writing it in the script? Now John Brennan enters. He looks a lot like Elijah Wood, just to try and maybe entice you, maybe when you read the script.
Remarkably like Elijah.
Almost a spitting image of, you would say. Who is John Brennan, for people who don't know? Dylan Thomas we know, but John Brennan we may not.
Well, he's a bit of a spectre in the sense that there's very little biographical information about John available. But John was a poet and a poetry professor. It was his idea to bring Dylan Thomas to the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
It was his brainchild. He was a great fan of his work and felt that the American audience should be introduced to the sort of greatest lyrical mind in history or in living history. But he was also a very buttoned-up individual, relatively private, and his world was turned upside down when he brought Dylan Thomas to America.
Who was a force of nature, essentially.
A total force of nature. Heavy drinker. But I actually look at him really fondly. I think, he was a lot to handle, and I think in John's position, and certainly the disposition of John, it would have really rattled him. But I think what's really amazing about Dylan is that he was just 100% vulnerable and open to everyone all the time. And he was open to any possibility. And that can yield intense results. But he also really deeply connected with people and got other people to sort of reveal themselves. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about the character. I mean, he was a little self-destructive and not very healthy, but a remarkable person in the sense that he would look for poetry amongst the world around him,
In terms of that central dynamic, Kellen, were you basing the film or were you inspired by other movies? I know you've said With Nell and I was an inspiration in the past.
Yeah, well, we wanted this film to be for everyone. In the script, I believe Dylan. People say the rock star poet. I think he's the people's poet. I think he writes for everyone. It's not just for an academic hierarchy. It's not just for speaking to the layman. It's out there without question or without reason. Just don't judge it. Don't forgive it nothing. This is what I created. And I felt like that was him as a person. The stories about him. He'd go to a pub to talk. That was the reason he went to pubs, he said. I went to talk first and then drink. And so I just found this sort of really human sort of character, and I sort of felt that this sort of central dynamic could be like all those classic buddy movies. Maybe With Nell and I is a great reference. Sideways is a good reference to it. And it could be for anybody who's never heard about Dylan, or maybe they might pick up a poetry book after the end of it, and then that's cool, but they might just get something out of it because it's about this relationship, about two men who need each other at this moment in time. So, inspired. There's a sneaky little line in there which is a nod to With Nell and I. Okay. But when you say With Nell and I, people just say, is it just about drinking? And that's just sort of a small aspect to it, because Dylan said he had the beast, the angel, and the madman within him. So, he was drunk, he was sober, he was kind, he was cruel, he was funny, he was sad, he was, all of us.
Was it easy to write that central dynamic between the firebrand and this buttoned-up guy?
Well, it starts with a dialogue, doesn't it? And you just think, well, what was it like? This happened. This man landed like a wide-eyed owl looking like an unmade bed in New York in 1950, leaving his wife and children broke. He was broke, and he had to go there. And John wrote him a letter saying, I think you're great, come over to America. We all love you, and you'll make some money. So he goes there, and then America just hits him. And, so sort of, then you think, well, this happened. He landed in New York. He was like a spinning top, like a whirlwind. John bundles him into a car, and drives into a log cabin in the middle of nowhere. And then you think, well, all right, well, that's your film.
Yeah.
What then your imagination goes on fire. This man and John Brennan, Dylan Thomas, what the hell did they talk about? How did you keep him entertained? So that then you're off. Then your imagination flies.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think you just nicely set up the first clip, in which John and Dylan are on a lake in a boat at the Fairy Fry cabin. Let's take a look. So just to set the scene, that was January, February of this year.
That was some of that was actually on my birthday, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
January 28th.
Okay. So pretty cold.
Yeah.
I'm guessing.
It was cold.
Yeah. And what were your memories of filming that? You didn't end up in the drink, did you?
I did not end up in
Okay.
the drink. We shot all of the boat sequence over the course of 2 days, and it was our first 2 days of shooting. And so it was kind of amazing, actually, to get into that material and that scene. I think it's the most connected they ever get in the film. It's the first time that that Dylan really opens up to John, and John is trying to get answers out of Dylan to understand how he's capable of writing the art that he writes.
Mm.
And it's that moment where he finally lets it go, and he's like, okay, ask me the questions that you want to ask, and I'll reveal them to you.
Mm.
It's a really beautiful thing, and it's kind of the crux of the film. So to do that in the first 2 days, it was ballsy. Oftentimes it's sort of nice to start with something easy.
Yeah.
And
Open
groove
the door.
into it. Yeah, exactly. Insert shots. And get used to working together and get used to the crew. But there's also the opposite of that, is to jump in headlong, which is what we did, and it was very gratifying. It was kind of discovering our characters in the moment and feeling comfortable with our working dynamic, which was so much fun and so gratifying on a daily basis. It was great to just jump right into that.
How did you work in that dynamic between the two of you? Did you have much rehearsal time, much time to build chemistry between Dylan and John?
We fell in love instantly. Yeah.
With the old kiss me icebreaker, was
yeah,
it?
kiss me. Yeah. Yeah. No,
was
I've
fast.
made him become my best friend. That's what I do. That's what I do. You bring to Swansea, get him at his most vulnerable and cold, and then say, never leave me. He's a great guy,
And same.
He's a brilliant actor and a great guy, and that's genuine, and so it's very, very easy. And on top of that, we knew we had 18 days to make this film, and it had to be finished, didn't it, boys? The window would close, and we had to, so we just literally didn't leave each other's side for the whole shoot. Even not going back to trailers, if we ever had a trailer. Do you know what I mean?
We had trailers?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. They used to serve chips out of them at lunch. And
You had lunch? That's amazing.
We had lunch. That's good. Every day.
Wow.
it was sort of important just to be together, and we were, he's away from, we're both away from home,
Yeah.
I'm from Wales, but I don't live in Swansea,
Yeah.
and so, I'm away from my wife and kids, Elijah's away from his friends and family, and, so there's something about these two actors coming together to make this piece of work at the same time, sort of trying to get this chemistry going on screen, which felt effortless,
And part of it was effortless.
Yeah.
The work and the enormity of the responsibility I think that both of us had, especially Kel, bringing this man to life,
Yeah.
Of which I'm sure there are plenty of expectations from people about
Yeah.
that. But aside from that massive weight, we also just had the work, and there was a lot of it.
Yeah.
The script is mostly dialogue. It's mostly communication between each other and amongst the other characters that we meet along the way. And it was pretty much, there wasn't really a light day. There wasn't sort of an easy day. It was all heavy. And so, yeah, you kind of just rallied together, but it was so enjoyable. As cold as it was, as hard as the work was, as muddy as that bloody area got around the boathouse, it was always gratifying and enjoyable. And the work that Chris Seeger was doing as our DP on a daily basis, seeing these shots he was composing, it felt like we were making something evoking another time, and it was just gratifying on a daily basis, you know.
Obviously, it's in black and white. Kellen, did you envisage it in that way from the very beginning?
Yeah, I mean, I always wanted to be in a black and white movie, and but you know, Andy only ever saw it in black and white, and Dylan sort of exists in black and white. There's no real moving image of him. There's only a couple of colorized photos, but no color photograph of him. There's no real audio of his speaking voice, just his performance voice. So the black and white helped towards sort of that character, you know, sort of painting that picture, painting that time, you know, New York. You see the smoke and the cigarettes and the light and the steam coming up from the drain, and you hear the jazz music. The film's got an amazing score. Griff Rhys from the Super Furry Animals scored the music, you know, the whole film. Yeah. And, you know, you're in America, so the black and white helps, you know?
Yeah. And it's incredible as well, not just the achievement of shooting something like this in 18 days, but having Swansea double for New York as well. Were you daunted by that? Did you think we might not be able to pull this off?
Well, I mean, I remember talking to Andy the first time that I met him, and we talked about the movie, and I think at the time we were going to shoot in Manchester. I think that was the original location that we were going to shoot in.
Frequently doubles for New York, as far as we're
right.
Captain America and whatnot.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's been done before. So there was talk of that, and you know, even then he recognized the challenge. You know, and I think in his mind the way he approached it is he said, "Look, we're going to go impressionistic rather than try and be really literal with references to New York architecture and you know." The set design or dressing things, we're going to kind of go impressionistic with it so that you get a feel that it's New York without trying to be super literal. And I think that approach really helped. You know, there's just subtle little ways that we can kind of infer. There's a couple of shots. There's one shot in the film with me running through the snow down this street amongst people that looks like something out of It's a Wonderful Life or something. And you see the old cars, you see the snow falling, it's black and white, and it feels like New York.
Yeah.
So that was sort of enough, and we knew that if we just did those small little things, it would be enough. I mean, the vast majority of the movie takes place in Connecticut at the boathouse, so thankfully it wasn't, you know.
So we had the hard work of the designer, who was sort of a genius of turning parts of Swansea to look like New York, and if you moved the camera an inch to the left, you'd see a Yates's wine lodge, you know, and sort of bouncers chucking people out of bars and people eating at a Pizza Express or something like that. You know, but that sort of poor man's process was sort of very liberating to sort of tell the story. And then there was some luck, you know, because, you know, Welsh people are glorious, and sometimes a Welsh farming couple do build a log cabin, an American log cabin on their farm, and we find it, and we get to film in it, you know? So that was just lucky. When the location scout found that was like, well, we have our Millennium Falcon, you know what I mean? You know, we have the cabin, so we're away, you know? Yeah. So, you know, a lot of hard work, a little bit of luck, and you know, it was, I think it's there, you know?
Am I right in thinking as well there were some locations in Swansea that were very, you know, special to Dylan Thomas, or very Dylan Thomas-centric as well, that you ended up shooting in?
Yeah, the Cardoma Cafe, where he used to have breakfast, became a 1950s diner. We redressed it.
Not bad.
And is it the No Sign Bar? Yeah. The No Sign Bar is...
Where Elijah gets forced to drink Guinness with a raw egg in it.
Yeah.
and Steve Spears, the Welsh actor Steve Spears, picks Elijah up and forces him to drink Guinness with a raw egg, and that's in the No Sign Bar where Dylan used to drink.
Wow. Okay.
And so yeah, it was like the ghost of Dylan Thomas. And then there's some amazing architecture where we shot Yale. Is actually the town hall. So in between takes, people are arguing about the bins and getting their driving license renewed or something like that next door. But you know, it's predominantly the talent of the crew who really sold it, and then the spirit of Dylan, and also the spirit of Swansea, who just rolled their sleeves up and got a lot of support and a lot of love and just got right behind it. We're sort of going to screen the film there on Sunday.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, which we're looking forward to. It's going to be good.
Fantastic. And I have to ask about the Guinness and the raw egg. Yeah. How many takes and what were you really drinking?
It wasn't actually Guinness. I think it was a non-alcoholic beer, and
Okay.
it was pretty rubbish. And they had to create, because non-alcoholic beer doesn't form a head, I guess.
Okay.
You know, the sort of
Yeah, yeah,
classic
yeah.
Guinness head. So that wasn't there. So they had to like foam it up. It wasn't. It
Did,
was
did
a
you
bit
ask
unsavory.
what they were putting into it?
Yeah.
You don't want to know,
but the-
essentially.
Yeah, exactly. And the egg, you know, I'm game. I'll do whatever, you know. Thankfully, every single take, the egg dropped to the bottom of the glass. So by the time I held it, I was like, I'm good. I can see where it is. I don't have to touch it. Worked out well.
Kellen, there's a fair amount of drinking for you in this movie. What were you imbibing in real
What was I
life?
drinking?
Yeah, in real life.
In real life?
Yeah.
Oh, loads of cold tea and apple juice.
Yeah.
You know? Lovely, you know?
You didn't go full method in
I
this
know,
one.
no. Loads of people are saying, oh, did you go full method? And you're like, we had 18 days to shoot this film. I would have been no use to anyone. You know what I mean? Sort of, you know, singing rugby songs in the corner.
Yeah, but you're the writer, so if you start ad-libbing, it's fine. You can do what you want.
But yeah, but it's no. It was a. You just have to, you know, I was sharps on it, and we worked out a way with the smoking, and we worked out a way with the drinking, and you know, and sort of mindful of that. It's sort of one aspect to it, you know, that to show Dylan drunk and to show him is sometimes his behaviour is not dictated by drink. It's actually dictated by others. It's pricking that bubble of pomposity, you know, whenever he feels like someone's being picked on or marginalised. You know, if he stands up for John, he'll throw himself on that grenade, and that's not necessarily the drink. That's just the way he feels inside his heart. You know, so he would misbehave, not just because he was drunk. You know, it's because of the situation he found himself in. So, you know,
You've done it again. You've set up the next clip again inadvertently. I don't know how you're doing this.
I'm very good.
This is
Wow.
amazing.
This was not planned, I promise.
This is not that slick. This is a scene involving Shirley Henderson and Kevin Eldon. Can you set them up who they play in the movie?
Shirley and why am I forgetting his name?
Kevin Eldon.
Stanley, that's it. Shirley and Stanley, who were writers.
Yeah.
And Shirley wrote a very famous novel, a horror novel.
she wrote a brilliant short story, Seek Out, called The Lottery, which was fantastic, which was sort of like a seminal kind of horror short story of a time. Stanley was a critic. He lived in New York, and this actually happened. They had a log cabin too near John's log
In
cabin,
Connecticut.
and this sort of evening actually happened. I mean, apparently in real life it didn't happen in John's cabin. It happened
Okay.
in theirs, but
Yeah.
they did come round and they did party. And John did not have the evening he expected to have with his literary hero and these two great academic minds.
Barreled in
Yeah.
and kind of ruined his evening. It was actually really fantastic. In the middle of the film, this sort of sequence with
Yeah.
Shirley and Stanley exists, and it in the script it was almost like a play within the interior of the film. It occupied, I think, 14 pages or something, or 12 pages.
You can tell it's my first script. 14 pages.
But it was really fantastic, and something we really looked forward to as actors, to work with them. I love Kevin and Shirley Henderson as you know, an acting goddess. She's incredible. And it was as if Stanley and Shirley were real. They came into our lives, and it had a very similar effect on us.
Yeah,
It
because
just
we'd
brought
had a
this
week alone, hadn't
whirling
we?
dervish of energy into the space. It was really remarkable.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Amazingly set up. Let's take a look at the clip. Thanks, guys. Major fight scene.
Oh, yeah, huge.
How long did it take to shoot that? Days, I'm
Well, it was
guessing?
the preparation that took
Yeah.
days. Yeah, it's really
Wire
quite a
work, stunt
choreographed
work.
piece.
Yeah, it's like Raging Bull for poets. Yeah. Pretty intense.
Let's throw it open to you guys now. If you have any questions for Kellen and Elijah, put your hands up. Wow, immediately right up at the back. We'll get microphones around you again. There's a gentleman right by the camera. Keep your hand up so that we can see it. Thank you.
Hi,
Hello.
how are you?
Very well. How are you?
I'm fine, thank
Great.
Next question. Thank you very much.
you. Have you ever thought becoming a poet yourself?
Is that for both of us?
Both. Yeah.
A poet yourself. Ever become a poet yourself?
Become a poet?
Yeah.
Oh, I've written some terrible poetry in my time. There's I found, funny enough, I found a chunk of poems that I wrote when I was a teenager, and when I thought I was this sort of, whatever, finding myself growing up, and it's actually the poem in the film that John's marking.
What?
Yeah.
You never told me that.
No, I know.
Wait,
Yeah.
you wrote that?
Yeah.
Do you realize how meta that is?
Yeah.
Because I'm reading. This is the scene, guys. Let me set it up for you. I'm reading. This is crazy. So I'm reading. I'm a poetry professor. And I'm basically grading papers, right? So I'm reading my students' work, apparently his work, and then I give it to Dylan to sort of like if you were to read this. You know, I'd love to hear your comment on it. You know, my students would love to know what the great Dylan Thomas would have to say about their work, which is crazy. That means that you, as Dylan Thomas, were reviewing your own work.
What an egomaniac!
So meta.
It's a thing. You know, I know.
Kellen.
That's why I never shared it in the Pizza Express in Swansea. I waited till we had a crowd, you know, because I didn't want to be judged in any way.
That's so great. Now I wish I remembered the poem.
Do you happen to remember it, Kellen? I'm sure you have it in a piece of paper in your pocket, or
no? It's the bit in the film when he goes,
Yeah.
"You tried to break my father, and I walked on the dreams with the collateral of another boy's dawn." Yeah.
I don't remember. He says, just dashing it off.
Yeah. You know, listen to a lot of deep music as a teenager. You know.
So great.
Yeah. So yeah, have I thought of being a poet? Well, I thought of playing a poet, and I have written poetry, bad poetry. But I try to rectify it when I played a poet in a film by commenting on it and saying to John, please don't judge that poem.
Yes.
The boy's trying his best.
Yes. That is. Oh my God, my mind is so blown right now. That is really amazing on so many levels.
Now we're sharing. This is good. We're
This is
comfortable.
really-
Yeah. This
So
is
Elijah,
breakthrough.
any bad poetry or good poetry? Good
Bad poetry. Bad poetry. When I was
past?
young, I had no aspirations to be a poet, but I definitely did write some. I wrote one about I think it was called Blur or Whir or something. It was Blur, and how life is a blur. It was horrible. It was horrible. It was so bad. It was just like everything's passing us by.
Nah, man, I'm with
You
you.
know?
I love it. It's deep, brother. It's deep.
And it's just we're not paying attention to it. It was horrible.
Have you
And
sold?
I thought it was really clever at the time.
It sounds good. have
Thanks,
you
man.
sold the movie rights? Are they still available?
They are available.
We'll talk afterwards, you and I. We'll talk afterwards. Any other questions for Kellen and Elijah? Yes, please. Right over here. Thank you.
This is kind of a question both for Elijah and Kellen, but particularly for Kellen. What was your method in like tackling the roles that you had on this film? Like, in terms of for you, Elijah, you know, as an actor, did you have a certain style or do you have a method that you do when you tackle these kinds of roles? And for Kellen, you know, being the co-writer and also a performer for the film, was there a certain method you needed to establish in order to get the film rolling, basically?
Thanks, Shaggo. Thanks, man. As a writer, I really had to take my writer's hat off just before we went into production, and then it belonged to Andy Goddard and his vision for the film, because he was going to direct it and put it on there. So I stopped being the writer as soon as we started making it. And in terms of the imagination's a powerful thing, you know. The method thing is crazy, you know. The idea of getting drunk to play a drunk, or you know, thinking of something terrible that's happened to you because that's the emotion you need to feel. Stanislavski didn't do that. He was actually all about the imagination, and it's been sort of confused down the line. It's actually about sort of giving yourself over to each other, you know, reacting, acting, you know, allowing the person, the actor that you're with, to affect you. So it's about being open to the work and each other. So, you know, if my process it was actually to sort of give myself over to the director and the other actors in it. But playing Dylan, because he bares his teeth one moment, he's laughing the other. It actually was quite a freeing thing, because there were no sort of boundaries in that way. So that was, you know, that was scary, because you could think, this might be terrible, but that's when you just trust that, you know, ooh, take it down, man, take it down. You know, but you just give yourself over to and trust the people around you, really. So, yeah, does that answer your question? Writing it, cheers, buddy. Thanks, man. Writing it, take the hat off. Acting, give yourself to other people. I'm sort of saying I shift the blame onto everyone else.
Elijah?
I agree with that in terms of the process. Yeah, I think there's a certain amount of research and depending on the character that you're playing. In this case, it was a living man, so I certainly tried to find out as much as I could about John Malcolm Brennan as possible.
There's not a lot out there.
Turns out there isn't
Yeah.
a lot of information, so I kind of relied more heavily on the script, the way that he was characterized in the script. And I thought, actually, the fact that there wasn't a lot of information was incredibly revealing. It revealed that he was very private and relatively buttoned up and sort of remained so for the rest of his life. But yeah, it's I think the process is doing a great amount of work prior to getting there, being as prepared as possible. And then, like Kellen said, it's about being open and letting the work and being open to the people around you and the environment that you're in and listening and reacting, and that's sort of what it is. I think a great deal of the work in terms of discovering the character, I think, happens prior to the day that you're shooting it, and then you open yourself up to things happening. That's sort of the beautiful thing about working on film and acting, is anything can happen, and there can be these sort of surprises that just come out of the moment and the energy amongst a group of people, all in service of this thing that you're working towards. And I love that. I love that about it.
Fantastic. Yes, please. There's a lady here. Thank you.
Hi, guys.
Hey.
Which scene have you hated filming the most and loved filming the most?
In this film, or
Well,
just in life?
No, in this film.
Oh, in this film.
Hated. I don't know. It's hard, man. My dreams have just come true. So it's like, what was challenging? Well, I loved. I suppose there was loads of moments. I'm not very good with favorites. I'm sorry. You know what I mean? I can't say favorite band, favorite film.
I'm shit at that.
Yeah, favorite
Sorry.
color. I'm terrible. Yeah, I can't do it. But what I can expand on is that the idea of, the excitement of scenes like Shirley and Kevin. Like what Elijah was saying, you allow the work to happen. Shirley Henderson comes into a film.
They were in explosions.
Yeah, and that affects the characters and the film. You've got Kevin Eldon, this sort of legend of a performer, and Shirley Henderson, this kind of magician. And you allow that sort of energy, and then you go into another sequence, and it's in a diner, and Mamie McCoy is just incredible, and Richard Brake is just so cool, and so. Really enjoyed. I suppose the hardest one to do was when I had to do Dylan reading the poem. I suppose, I wouldn't say I hated it, because I'm happy with what happened, but doing it, I was nervous about going, okay, this is how I think Dylan would have performed at this point in the poem, and there's a lot of pressure on that. And that's when your mate says to you, shut up, just do it. Which is what he said, and so that was hard, and fun was kind of having all these brilliant actors to work with,
Yeah, I mean, I'll echo Kellen in saying that there wasn't really a scene that I hated. I suppose there were scenes that were more challenging. There's a sequence in the film where a number of us tell sort of ghost stories or horror stories, and it takes up a great deal of the center of the film. There's a lot of dialogue in there. Shirley tells an incredible ghost story, and John tells a story that is related to a personal incident that's actually deeply revealing and kind of horrible and horrific in its own way, in its very real way. And I was petrified, because it was a lot, and it was scary to, watch Shirley be like so incredible every take, and then be like, "Aye, the pressure's on. I gotta tell my story." So that was probably the most challenging in a way, but also so much fun. There was never there honestly wasn't a day I hated. And I think the moments that I loved the most, I'll echo Kellen as well, as when we would have these wonderful people come and sort of explode into our world. It just changed the dynamic. in such a real way, you know, in a way that those characters really did for our characters, and to react to that and with that and feed off of that was an absolute joy, and we just always constantly felt really lucky to be surrounded by these incredible people, you know.
Let's have a question. Over here, please. Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
I was wondering, what drives you when you decide to take on a movie? Are you attracted by something about the movie, or are you doing it for someone, or are you doing it because... what drives you?
That's a great question. Kel?
No, man, you can answer that one. Yeah.
Okay.
I went through a period of my career where I would sell toxic waste just to pay the mortgage. No. But no, it's the material. It's the material, you know? Material and the people.
Yeah, I think it's a variety of things. You know, I can be just as motivated and excited by simply wanting to work with a filmmaker, you know. Oftentimes I find it's not necessarily the roles themselves that I'm attracted to. I think I'm such a fan of cinema and such a lover of the process that I'm as attracted to the writer and the director and other actors and the kind of creative, the ultimate full creative idea of what the thing's going to be, more than just specifically a character. So it can be a variety of things, you know, and it's always a gut feeling, I think. And I'm never looking for anything specific. I think always just looking for a different experience and something new and challenging. And I'm sure Cal would feel the same way. I think as actors, you're constantly wanting to grow and to push yourself and to put yourself into places where you're afraid. I think what was nice about this film, as I was saying earlier, this idea of wanting to do something that was really stripped back and down to its barest essentials was an exciting prospect. But it also kind of scared me too. Like you're a little bit more laid bare when there aren't smoke and mirrors, you know. It's purely driven on it. This film lives and dies on its characters and its characterizations and the performances. So you're far more vulnerable in that situation. And
there's not going to be an explosion.
Yeah, there's no orc battle in the third act, you know, to look
Big
forward to.
Great white shark
Right.
through. Yeah.
And I think it's good. It's good to be afraid. It's good to be scared. That's a good place to operate from. It normally means that you should probably do it if you're afraid.
Yeah, the route to wisdom starts with "I don't know." I think it is.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and I think this, you know, in this film, Andy says a great thing about this film, which is, you know, that you know, it's a truly independent piece of cinema, and it was sort of Andy Goddard's vision, and there was nobody, and the producers supported the film we wanted to make, without anybody above telling us what to do. So whether it sort of succeeds or fails, it's the piece of work that we set out to make, you know?
Indeed, and that's a lovely note on which to end. That's all the time we have, I'm afraid. Set Fire to the Stars is out on November 7th, just in time for the 100th anniversary of Dylan Thomas's birth, which is the intention, I believe, from the off. You wanted to get it out just in time for that?
Not necessarily. We didn't go, hey, there's a centenary. Who can I play? You know what I mean? You know,
let's take advantage of this.
Yeah.
Who's 100 next year?
Yeah, who's 100 next year? Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna do them all. You know. Yeah. You know, I've got mouths to feed. And but it was the Dylan Thomas centenary. It was a case of, will people be a bit Dylan'd out after this year, you know? And because it was a story we always wanted to tell and a film we always wanted to make, we thought, well, that was our moment to do it. And if we were going to do it, it had to be then.
Yeah, and there's something I think also about people who don't know about Dylan Thomas. There would at least be a certain amount of focus on him to provide a little bit of context.
Absolutely.
That would just make it a little bit, the entry into it maybe perhaps a little easier as well.
Indeed.
You know?
Fantastic. Well, thank you guys so much for coming.
Guys,
thank
thanks
you
so
for coming.
much.
Thanks
very,
for
very
questions.
much.
Elijah Wood,
Thank you
Celyn
very
Jones,
much.
thank you.